This has been a wild year so far. A lot of people have hit the chop block, and I would expect more to be targeted by the year's end. I don't think that this is going to stop anytime soon, unfortunately, and I think it's quite terrible to see this happening to so many people, especially for some of the stupid reasons that people bring up to get people out of the spotlight. Joe Rogan was targeted a few days ago, and it's still kind of keeping up. However, unlike a lot of the other people that have been put on the chopping block, Joe Rogan has a lot of FU money, and his podcast, I think, is probably his most successful thing right now. And the good thing about his podcast is it's not really beholden to anybody. And I don't think that they would go as far as they went with like Mr. A. Jones and remove him from, Apple and Google. That probably won't happen. But I could see them going after his sponsors and stuff like that, which I think would be terrible. But it's things these people have done. At the end of the day, though, I think he would survive and probably thrive from them trying to cancel him. It would depend on if he bends the knee or not. If he bends the knee, then that would be worse. If he stands up to the mob, I think that that would actually benefit him a lot. I think that would actually blow his podcast up, to be honest. This all started from this. So I talked about this in my last video. This is where a lot of this sparked. Joe Rogan says some celebrities too wrapped up in progressive ideology to see how dumb they look. This is because a bunch of celebrities got together and did this stupid PSA where they're like, I'm sorry. I take responsibility. I'm so sorry. It was really cringy, really stupid. And he blasted. He said it was dumb. He called them effing morons. You're taking responsibility. No, you're trying to get attention. That's what you are doing. If they ever feel like doing that again, call me. I'll tell you how it's going to turn out. So, yeah, it's pretty funny and true. So he did that. And then within the same day, he also said things about Biden as well, called Biden a moron and all of this stuff. And then the same day, this popped up. Kind of coincidence, huh? It's just popped up that same day. I don't really believe in coincidences like this. This is a very old clip, too. It was from him and a couple of other comedians were sitting around and they were joking about women, female comedians and stuff, and having some laughs. But for that clip to come out right now, with all the canceling going on, it was bad. Could have potentially been a career destroyer. And that circulated and got more attention than the PSA roasting. And it also got more attention than the Biden comments. Isn't that funny? That's how this stuff works. Oh, we'll just bring this up to get away from the other things you said. And it's done for a reason. His podcast is very popular. I would say he's probably, in my opinion, the modern day Howard Stern. His podcast is really popular. It's a really good podcast. I like his podcast quite a bit. It's very entertaining. And because of that, things that he says could influence people. So, you got him running around saying these celebrities are stupid and that Biden, has cognitive decline. That could get noticed by people and get a lot of traction going. So it's important to sweep that news under the rug and replace it with something. It's almost like they had this clip kind of ready to go and ready to fire away if they've needed it. Because it's funny how it just surfaced out of nowhere. It's highly likely that someone went through all this stuff, because that was from an old podcast. The podcast's been around for a long time. And, we'll just throw this out there now, and we'll just try to destroy him. It didn't work. It didn't do anything to him. But it was incredibly funny how it just showed up out of nowhere. It doesn't stop, though. We have stuff like this popping up. UFC news, Joe Rogan slammed for BLM protest comments on podcast. How is this UFC news? How is this UFC news? Number one, yes, he's a commentator on there, but his comments on this don't affect how he talks about fighters in the UFC. But you see, it's like a small little smear thing. We say this, associate it with UFC, Joe Rogan. Maybe if you're looking up UFC, you might see Joe Rogan, negative BLM comments, associate him with that. That's something that I think is the goal here. You know, what does this have to do with UFC? Nothing really. It does have something to do with smearing Joe Rogan and his name and his credibility and his job. Maybe UFC will see this and he'll get under fire to get rid of him. They'll put the president of the UFC under the hot seat to fire Joe Rogan. Now that hasn't happened, and this hasn't really picked up steam, but these comments are there. All it would take is for one outraged lunatic with a little bit of a platform to push for it. And it would 100% probably happen. Maybe. The guy who owns the UFC is actually, he actually stands up to this stuff pretty good. But I don't think he's really faced a hate campaign that like the far left. And they are ruthless people. So it would be a see what happens. Now I think this stuff is more of a warning, like back down, Joe, stop talking about it. But that's not really what he does. He talks about whatever he wants, and I think at the end of the day, his podcast could sustain him enough. But you see here, you got like this, F Rogan, and stuff like that. So we'll see. You got some people like here, Washington Wizards shooting guard Bradley Beal tweeted, instead of assuming, Joe, get out there and ask these young men. And the fact that you said invisible enemy is effing disgusting. This type of ignorance won't be tolerated. So people with a good enough platform haven't really went after him. It seems like this kind of got swept under the radar, but they'll try again. I promise you they'll try again. There's another article about Bill Burr blast Joe Rogan on face masks and stuff like that. There's a lot of negative press on Joe Rogan right now. And then you see stuff like this. When edgy comedy is actually just lazy. Joey Diaz and Joe Rogan have reignited the debate about political correctness in comedy. Whole article about how comedy should be PC. Look at this long article. Comedy needs to be PC, and if you're edgy, you should. If you're not willing, if you think edgy comedy is needed, well, you're just lazy. Now, here's what's funny. This article doesn't even really target Joe Rogan too much. They bring up a lot of stuff in here, like Jerry Seinfeld said he doesn't play in colleges anymore because the students are so PC. And it's an easy excuse that places the blame for his inability to get a laugh there squarely on the audience rather than take a moment to reflect on whether his material has become dated. As Anthony Jeselnik told Pace last year, I see it and welcome it as a challenge. Anyone who complains about PC culture is lazy, and I think that it's my goal to kind of get through that obstacle course. I like doing colleges because it's a challenge. How can I get these kids who are so PC to laugh at these things? I want to be like that. I don't want a bunch of gross old men in the back smoking cigars saying they need more rash stuff. That sucks. So I think anyone who's complaining about PC doesn't want to work hard on these jokes. I know a good PC joke for the colleges. What's the deal with banana peels? You might slip on one. Like, that's the kind of stuff that you have to say. That's the comedy we're moving towards. Got like this person right here, ruining everyone's good time. One thing I've done as a female comedian is when comics say something sexist or racist around me, I very seriously ask, why is that funny? Immediately grants you blessed silence. So, why comedy is supposed to be controversial. It's the point of comedy. Comedy should be groundbreaking and edgy. It should straddle lines. It's like the point of it. Dave Chappelle himself has said this, who has been joining the far left in some stuff lately. I wonder, because they've already went after you a few times, Dave. I don't know what you're doing, man. Dave, one of the last few comedians that are really funny. Him and Bill Burr's pretty funny still. And there's a couple left, but not many. There's not many left. But what's funny about this article is, what does it do? It talks about racism and sexism and all of this stuff. Istophobe, all of that. And they put Joe Rogan right at the front, put his name in here, and they attach him to this. So you could read this whole article, and even though they don't really mention Joe Rogan that much, you walk away associating Joe Rogan with racism and stuff like that. So it's just really the tactic here. So I'm seeing a lot of stuff pop up on him, and I wonder, how far will this go? It's something to watch, because I think it'd be hard to cancel him. I think it will be, because he's actually quite popular. He's, like I said, the modern day Howard Stern, and he's got a few money. I think he could ride it out and grow his brand even stronger. So we'll see. This will be an interesting one to watch. It really will be. Anyway, thanks for watching. Share the video. Make sure you still subscribe. Subscribe if you're new. Hit that notification bell. Let me know your comments on all of this. Like I said, I'd like to hear what you guys think. Do you think they'll be able to get rid of Joe? And that's pretty much it. See you guys on the next one. Peace. Also, if you want to help support the channel, check out my Teespring store. There's a link in the description. You can find some merchandise in there that you might want to check out.